So I don't know if I told you this, but when I got into Italy, I ended up getting an infection. What? Is that your coffee?
I was trying to
not with that face. No.
Just try it. Sorry, there's lip gloss on there. Amir, stop! You're being dramatic. Just ew.
Is there salt in that? Why would you put salt in coffee?
There's a lot of salt in there.
How are you?
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of The Cousin.
We're a little rusty here. Connection
podcast. It's been a few weeks. We've been living life, and life has been happening. Yeah, both living life and life has been happening. First off, sorry for being away for so long. It was unexpected, mainly because we both ran a 10K and maybe we're a little exhausted, okay?
But we posted a vlog.
Yeah, exactly. You guys still got a vlog out of it, which came out only 4 days after doing that run. So, that's like a record for a vlog edit. I'm just saying.
It was shorter than
I know, it was shorter and it was like a little bit more easier to like put it together, but still, okay?
No, it was really good. I watched it.
You watched? Well, you must have watched it. What time? Okay.
I was there, but I also watched it. But thank you guys. They were all very. Did you read the comments?
I haven't seen them yet. It's been busy. Okay, it's been a minute. Okay,
we'll read them today.
You'll see why, and you'll hear my mom speaking back. She's like screaming on the phone right now.
Is it getting picked up?
I don't think so.
So it's fine.
Whatever. Okay, that's the background. What do they call it again? Like the background ambience. Yeah,
it's authentic to who we are.
Exactly.
But
yeah, so before we left y'all, or after we left y'all, we ended up doing a 10K, the one that we've been speaking about. And as you saw on the actual vlog, we both completed it successfully. I think we both like pretty much completed the goals that we had, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I know people were right after that. People were pushing for like a half marathon. I don't know.
We should do it.
I don't know about that.
October.
I don't know. You're on that side of the fence for it. I don't know if I've like jumped that far.
You can
yet.
do it.
I'm still on it now.
No, you can do it.
I don't know about 20. What is it? 23 kilometers?
21.
21?
Yeah. It sounds like a lot, but you already did half of it ish.
Yeah, and like even half of it was
tough.
You know what? Actually, surprisingly enough, like I know we already mentioned this on a vlog, whatever, but it wasn't as tough as I thought it would be. But I think it's mainly because, of course, Yonge Street, which the marathon was on, is like there was a lot of terrain that were kind of went up and down, but near the end it just went down.
Yeah.
So thankfully that kind of helped because near the end's really where you're kind of gassed out a bit.
Yeah.
I've never been a runner to begin with. Like I've never
but now you are.
I don't know about like I haven't run since really. I guess because I have been on vacation. We'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
But like also I'm scared of like losing muscle from the running because they say like it can, especially if you're not
strength training in between.
Not strengthening, but like adjusting your eating habits for it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I like just the eating habits I have now. I don't have to go overboard with it. Like with working out and everything, I can stay pretty consistent. But you guys can still convince me. We'll see how the training goes because we are trying to keep up the weekly training. I haven't been since then, but when things cool down a bit.
We all took a break.
Exactly.
Today was the first group run, but we didn't go.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We a little slept in a little bit, okay?
That's fine.
Yeah, but overall, the 10K was really fun. It was a lot more people than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Like, literally, it looked like millions of people. I'm sure it wasn't. I no, okay. I'm sure it wasn't millions of people. Okay.
It was like thousands.
Huh? But like,
thousands.
The crowds were endless.
Yeah, no, like, there were, I was shocked.
It was really crazy inside. By the way, we got like Aisha here on the side. Hello. You can't see her on the camera because she's not ready for that camera ready right now, but yeah, you might hear her. You might hear her voice there on the side. But yeah, so I was not expecting that. You know what? It's because when we did the 5K, like I don't know why, I was expecting something like that. When we did the 5K with Sara,
there was no one there.
Yeah, it was literally like maybe a group of 50 people max.
Yeah,
something like that, at least for runners. So I don't know why I was expecting maybe that or maybe 2 or 3 times that. I didn't know how big or how popular this thing was.
I heard that there were going to be like people cheering us on, but I also didn't expect that many people.
Yeah. It was crazy how many people were there.
The signs were funny.
Huh? Oh, you're reading all the signs, right?
Yeah.
I actually touched a couple power up signs.
Those
yeah,
ones?
the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helped a little bit.
Did you see the one that said like, bark if you have that dog in you?
Yes, I saw it too.
Did you bark?
I didn't bark for that one. I didn't bark for that one. Yeah, but
Anwar barked.
did he actually?
Yeah, I was actually in tears.
Yeah.
But no, I know what you mean. Like, it wasn't. You know why? Because it's
Why?
all a mental thing. You know that, right?
What, the running?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, you don't realize how far you can push your body.
Yeah.
Until you actually do it, right? There are people out here doing Moabs, or are they called Moabs?
What's that?
Basically, it's a 250-kilometer marathon.
Running?
Yeah, running.
Why?
Like, day and night, to the point where these runners, there's a guy that I follow that like does them consistently, and they say like they get hallucinations. They rarely sleep. They start like peeing different colors. Yeah.
Like blood?
Yeah. It's actually crazy. But there are people who do this regularly.
How long does it take them?
They sleep maybe for 1 or 2 hours max. There are areas where they can sleep, but they want to complete it in a reasonable time. You're not going to sleep for 8 hours. They're going to sleep.
What's a reasonable time?
What?
What's a reasonable time?
Like within a few days. Like within maybe 2-3 days, something like that. Yeah.
250 kilometers.
Yeah. And like, he'll be, when I'm watching him on TikTok, he'll be like, yeah, just completed a marathon, only about, 1/10 of the way through or something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it does show you that like your body is capable of a lot. Sure, of course they've trained for that, and maybe genetics plays a part, but
maybe
even a quarter of that, I feel like a lot of us are capable of doing that. It does require a lot of sacrifice and maybe a lot of pain. But it is a good gauge. At least the 10K was a good gauge of like how far we can push ourselves and knowing that we can push ourselves further. Because at the end of the 10K, like maybe for the last 500 meters or so, I actually sprinted.
Did you?
Yeah, like sprinted. That's why I didn't even film it, because I went full on like gazelle mode where I'm like bouncing off my feet, because I don't know what it is in me. I've done this for almost every race I've done in my life where. Why are you still drinking that, by the way? Okay. That face you're making. But every race I've done, I've always had like this weird second win for like the last maybe 10th of that race or whatever I was in.
Is it like the adrenaline kicks in? Cause
I think it is. Maybe it's the adrenaline, because that's the end. Like the moment you pass that, you can be finished. So your body's like, just do it, like push. And I do it and it works. Yeah. It got me under. Well, I think I would have beat the 1 hour mark anyways, but like it made my time a little better, which so that was an interesting thing about the run.
Were you sore after?
And surprisingly, I was not.
Really?
Surprisingly not. Yeah, I was not
at all.
Zero.
Oh, I didn't
pain, nothing.
I did not do enough stretches.
That's what it was.
Because the way.
Shout out to Hanan for that.
The way, like when I woke up on Monday.
Really?
I was like, because the race was Sunday, and I was fully convinced that I was going into work the next day. Absolutely. I couldn't move.
Really?
Like every step hurt. My abs hurt. My chest, like everything. I was like, I feel like I've been run over by a truck.
That shows you the power of stretching.
I know.
Yeah. Like we did a pre-stretch. She like had this video that we always do, or this routine we always do.
Yeah.
And I followed that one before we did the run. And then I did the same thing after the run, or some type of variation of it, and the next day felt nothing. It literally felt like I did not do a run the day before, and I've done runs before where I did feel pain. I think I even spoke about it. I don't know, on the vlog, but essentially, like 3 or 4 days before the actual run, I did an 8K as like a warm up to it, just to get my body used to that distance, and the day after that, my hip was locked up. I could not walk properly at all.
Yeah, and that was the first time I felt like hip pain.
Yeah.
That I'm like, dang, is this the beginning of the end? Like, this is what old people feel like? Damn.
But it does show you that like stretching really does make a huge difference.
Yeah, you know what? After the race, I just remember like once we gathered.
Yeah, we kind of just stood around for a bit.
Yeah, the adrenaline was like, we were just talking the whole time. That I didn't really prioritize stretching. I should have.
Well,
oops.
That's a tip for y'all next time.
Yeah, don't forget that part, because I suffered for 2 days.
Yeah. Well, that was one piece of our adventure for the past few weeks.
Yeah.
The second one was more of a solo one, at least with me and Hanan. We ended up going to Italy. And I don't think I even mentioned this to anyone.
No.
I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast.
No.
But yeah, we've been planning on this Italy trip for a minute. And because of the timing, like we couldn't record before that. So it's been a few weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, we went out there and like... I don't know what I was expecting because I've been to Italy before. I've been to Venice. But the weird thing about Italy is that like there's so many cities and they're all so different in their own way. Like if you go to Milan, your experience can be completely different from going to Venice versus going to Florence versus going to Sicily. There's so many different types of vacations you can have or experiences you can have when you're there.
Yeah.
But we ended up going to more of the like historical places. So we went to Rome, we went to Florence. We made a small stop in Siena. Those were like the main cities. And then we went to one port town along the way or to end off the trip basically. It's called Porto Santo Stefano.
Oh.
Yeah. So I actually wrote down like a list of the pros of the trip and like some of the cons.
Okay,
so I'm going to go through those right now. Okay. So the pros of Italy. Yeah. And this is actually uniquely from like a Muslim's perspective as well. I don't know if like us being black made a huge difference as well in this sense, but this is from like a Muslim's perspective because one thing about Italy or just Italian culture in general is that they are very like they love their pork, they love their pigs, like it's in their delicate in their ingrained in their culture to like eat them, right? So to the point where they have a name, they have like 10 different names for it. So you're always, when you're there and you're eating, you're always like keeping your eye on the menus, being like, what is this? Is this cheese or is this meat? But yeah, so from a Muslim perspective, we definitely had to, the food was definitely something we kind of had to be more vigilant on. But we were, at least me, myself, I was there more for like the history and learning more about the architecture and the history of the country. And Rome was probably the most surprising. Like, the things we learned about it. I think one of the biggest historical facts that I learned is that like Rome is, they call it the lasagna. They call the city of lasagna because it has so much history. And every time like a new civilization has come there, they've just built on top of the previous one. Literally. Like when I say on top of, I mean like the ground, maybe there'll be like a few hundred years where kind of dirt fills up the area and water comes in. And they literally just start building on top of that. To the point where like they're still doing archaeological digs and they're finding like whole new civilizations down there that used to live there thousands of years ago, right?
Damn.
Yeah, and that's how the city architecture is built. But also it was interesting hearing like a lot of the stories because we did have a guide. We had a guide who was booked. Actually, shout out to Timaj Travel. She's a travel agent herself. I think her Instagram page is like timaj.travel. And she ended up booking a lot of this for us, like whether it be the hotels, the tour guides, even giving us like tips on the food and other things places that we could go to. But yeah, she booked us a tour guide and the lady was like really funny. She was really cool.
Yeah.
She took us through like the Colosseum. This tour was specifically for the Colosseum and the Palatine Hill, which is right next door to it. And even the history of the Colosseum was crazy. Just knowing that like, first off, you see, when you picture the Colosseum, you see like half a building or whatever.
Yeah.
But of course, it used to be completely surrounded, right? It was a full circle before. And it actually went higher than what you see now.
Oh, yeah, because of the ruin.
It was abandoned essentially. At one point, it was abandoned, and the reason that a lot of it is missing actually is because they would take pieces of the Colosseum to help them build other buildings. Really? Yeah, because it was part of an older civilization, and then when the Christians came in, they were like, "Oh, this has no significance to us. We're not using the Colosseum anymore," and they're like, "But it still has all this marble and stone that we can still use. That's very usable." So they literally took it out. Even the iron, you can see these giant holes in the walls in the Colosseum, and that's where the nails used to be, these giant iron nails. They took those all out so they can melt them down and use them for like making weapons and whatever else they need metal for. Yeah, so it was interesting just hearing about that. And it wasn't even until recently that they found out Have you ever seen the Colosseum in the center? How now it's kind of like excavated and it's not flat. It like it looks like it has pillars inside.
Yeah, yeah.
That's actually the underground section that they didn't discover until like maybe a few decades ago.
Oh.
They just thought it was flat.
Yeah.
They didn't know that there was a whole under area or basement to the whole Colosseum.
Oh.
So that was pretty cool. And then as she's talking like she's saying like BC and AD, like around the low BC and ADs, and you're realizing like this is like around the time of the Prophet Isa, like the story she's telling, and like how for them like Prophet Isa to them was just a political nuisance.
Really?
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing that perspective from the Romans, because the Romans were ruling at that time, right? And it's hearing like the war between them and I think they call them the Israelites, the people who were in the Palestinian or Levant area at that time, the Jewish people, I guess, at that time. So it was interesting hearing that conflict and how they brought them and after they made them slaves. And just it's crazy hearing about, because we hear about stories of the prophets like from the Muslim perspective, but you're hearing it from like the Christian perspective. And yeah, it was really that was the most eye-opening part of it, like hearing it from a different perspective. And it's a very Christian area too. Like, remember, this is where they really like stake their claim and really start to spread out from, right? So that was a very, very interesting perspective, and just seeing all the art and like the how Christianity even spread there. Like they said that the Romans didn't really have like a concept or an idea of the afterlife. Okay. But a lot of the soldiers, like they were drawn to it basically because like when they died, they wanted they like the idea of having somewhere they go after they die, essentially, right? So it started with the soldiers who would go down there and hear about the Christianity that was spreading from the Levant area, and what we called essentially early Islam, and then they would be converting, but then they would be crucified for it. So like that whole like crucifixion thing the cross that they usually like depict Prophet Isa on, that was just a torture method basically for them. So you'd see those everywhere, like images of those everywhere. So it was
so what were they before Christianity then?
What do you mean? They're pagans. They had like pagan rituals, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they worship things like
Greek gods?
Yeah, like Greek gods and stuff like that. So you could see even when you're standing next to the Colosseum and between Colosseum and Palatine here, there's like their shrines are everywhere. Of course, they're all like super like broken down now, but you can still see some of the entrances to them.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And another historical fact, I don't go deep into this, but I was like super nerding out about this, is that Rome actually would flood a lot. It would flood and it would also burn down a lot. Like Rome literally, you know how they say like Rome wasn't built in a day? It's because it would always burn down and it would always get flooded out. And civilization, the people would leave it for hundreds of years. Like Rome wasn't just like, slowly built up. It would build up, then a fire would happen or a flood would happen, and then everybody would just leave. And it'd be left for maybe hundreds of years, which is why they call it lasagna, because those people who left, they would leave whatever they had there. People would come back, they would just build on top of it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it was really cool just hearing about all of that. And you can see like even the watermarks from some of the old temples that they had, where you can see the water used to sit. And it was like we were standing in the middle of it, and that watermark was like, or the water line was like maybe 50 feet above our heads.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could not imagine water being that high in Rome. And you can even see it on the Colosseum in some of the pillars.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But that was Rome. That was like one of the big highlights to it. Going back to the other pros that I had, the scenery is definitely like a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a point where we were driving between Rome and
Wait, you drove there?
No, actually, no. We took the train from Rome to Florence.
Okay.
But after we were done in Florence, we actually drove from Florence to Siena. And from Siena, we drove from there to the Porto Santo Stefano, because that's a port town. It's a lot harder to get there by train or any other. You have to take a bus essentially to get there because it's a port town. There's no trains really that kind of run there. But when we were choosing to drive between Florence and Siena, we realized that like, well, you know, they have a lot of scenery here. So we chose to like pick a small town in between that was far away from the highways. And that's where we got like the best scenery in all of Italy. Like, you could see the rolling hills. I kept telling people it looks like, it reminded me of the Windows XP wallpaper, the default wallpaper.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like rolling hills, blue skies.
Did you take pictures?
Oh yeah, I took plenty of videos, and I'll put it on the video. I'll show you after this.
Okay,
I'll put it on the video here, or the video version of the podcast. But that was beautiful. Like just seeing that, the weather was perfect.
I was just gonna ask you if it was hot.
Oh, it was like that, like perfect temperature where the breeze was hitting you. So it was hot, but when the breeze hits you, it feels like drinking a nice cold water, basically. That's the best feeling, right? So then you see the rolling hill, you see they're like interesting. They have these like trees that they actually kind of use them as windbreakers, but they're really tall trees, and people have seen these trees, and they point straight up into the air. They go up like 30-40 feet high, but they're just like, they look like a really long bush.
Oh,
have you seen these? You've seen these trees before, but
maybe
I just don't remember what the name of it is. I'll put up an image of it, but you see those everywhere, and they like line across people's driveways. So you see them lined all over the hills everywhere. You see them on top of the hills, lining them. It looks really picturesque everywhere, and you can see why there's so much art that's been created in those areas, right? Because it's just, you have so much inspiration.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was a huge positive, like just the scenery itself.
Yeah.
Ooh, I gotta get to the food now. I know I said like the food was kind of hard to choose, but the food was also another big positive for me, because of course the pizza. You know, who doesn't like pizza, right?
And pasta.
Pizza and pasta, and they definitely, you know, for the pasta, it was like, oh, you know what? I feel like, you know, my mom's cooking sometimes has been pretty good. Maybe I'm just used to those flavors. But the pizza, there was a couple of places where I were like super on point. Yeah. And the gelato.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gelato. That stuff was hitting. We made sure every day to have it at least once. And there's one spot specifically that sold something called affogato. Have you heard about that? It's essentially, they give you like a coffee cup. They put some gelato inside of it. In this case, it was just, the default was vanilla. And they make a little pocket in the center, and they put an espresso in the center. And you're supposed to like not mix it all together. You're supposed to take like a spoon of the gelato and then dip it into the espresso.
10 out of 10.
Man. 10 out of 10. There's a spot in Florence that had that. The line was crazy long, but it was totally worth it.
Really?
They had the best gelato, but also the best affogato. To the point where we tried to go back just for the gelato, and the line was too long, unfortunately. They didn't have like a separate line just for the gelato, which they should have, because like nobody's looking at the gelato area. They're all in the affogato spot, but whatever. Okay.
It's fine.
Next time, inshallah.
Yeah.
But that was definitely a huge positive as well. Some of the cons, actually, before I get to the cons, sorry, I'll give you a couple more smaller pros that I wrote, because Rome was definitely like my biggest highlight.
Yeah.
But Siena was also like Rome was good for the history and architecture and all that, but Siena was like, had the best vibes.
Really?
To us, yeah. And ironically enough, that was like the place we stayed in maybe the least in the whole trip. We stayed there just for one night, and not even like I don't even know if it was a full 24 hours, but we got in there and we had this nice hotel that was on top of a hill that was next to Siena, so you could see the whole view of Siena. That was really nice to see. And we had our car at that time, so we could just drive up to it. And Siena's on a giant mountain, or like hill, I guess you could say. Maybe a mountain or a hill. Maybe it used to be a mountain. But it was interesting because when you get to it, you have to like drive your car to the bottom of it, and they have escalators that like take you up the mountain.
Really?
Yeah, to the actual city. And you just walk your way up, because everything's going upwards essentially, and it opens up to a giant palazzo. I think they call it palazzo, but they essentially, it's like a big open area where you have like the restaurants lining the rim. And in the center you have the giant clock tower. And
I don't know anything about Siena.
It's a lot of cities are very similar in that they all kind of like lead to a giant palazzo. I hope I'm saying that right.
Is it basically the Italian word for plaza?
Yeah, plaza, a giant plaza with restaurants lining it, but it always has like a clock tower, or maybe sometimes even a giant church in the middle of it. And that was just I don't know. It was kind of like around dusk when we got there, and we just walked around. We got the best pizza we had the whole trip in that city. It was like literally a hole in the wall place.
Yeah.
The seating was only outside essentially.
Okay.
But that was really nice, and I think it might be biased just because it was a lot more quiet than Florence.
Yeah.
Which I put actually in my cons.
You put Florence as a con?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll talk about the pros.
Yeah.
So Siena was one of our highlights.
Yeah.
Florence was really nice for also like the history and the architecture and learning about, like Michelangelo and Da Vinci and not Picasso. Oh my God, Raphael and all these like philosophers and painters and artists and stuff. But there were a lot of people there.
I didn't think Florence was that poppin'.
It's very poppin', especially at the time we went. I think the reason I really I could look past it is because there was a game that I used to play called Assassin's Creed. I don't know. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
Ironically, like one of our cats is named after the character from that game that took part in Italy and specifically in Florence. And it was just really interesting seeing like in the video game. There's actually one point where we were in the bridge. It's called something Vecchio, but essentially it's a bridge that has a bunch of shops on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the bridge?
On the bridge.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a very iconic spot in Florence. And I was like, this place looks familiar. And I realized like as it was coming together, I was like, this is where the opening of the game is. And then we pulled it up and we're like, oh, this is exactly where the spot is. And we're trying to like aim ourselves to see like we're watching the video of the scene going down and we're like trying to stand in the spots to see like how accurate it is. But that was probably the most interesting part, just trying to put those things together, walking the streets of Florence and kind of comparing it to the video game and seeing where things took place. But it was just a lot of people around. And, it was like, we're kind of the part of the problem. We're also tourists. We're coming there, basically do the same thing that everybody else is doing there. But we thought that going in May would be a lot less busy, but it was still very busy. No, May is supposed to be like just before their high season. Okay. Yeah, usually into the summer is when it gets a lot more busy, but it was still pretty crazy there. At least line-wise, like the Affogato spot was in there, and like I mentioned, we had to wait like 45 minutes or so just to get it. It was worth it, but still.
Dang.
Yeah. But their history is also like just really interesting.
Yeah.
They have a lot of paintings and architecture and statues that you hear about and now you're seeing them in person. Yeah. Right? And then you're hearing about like the Medici family. And we had actually a tour guide. Sorry?
That sounds familiar.
It's because they basically ran Florence.
Oh, really?
The Medici family, yeah. And we had a guide for Florence as well. And she told us about the history of the Medici family and how powerful they were and how... Have you ever heard of the Uffizi? It's basically their most popular museum in Florence. Oh. And we found out that Uffizi basically stands for office because though it's now a museum, it used to be just their offices. And you see their sigil that we could see their sigil. It's literally just a bunch of balls on their sigil.
What's a sigil?
Like, you know how you always hear about in the medieval times, every family had like a crest or a sigil, something like that. So you would see that one. And then once she mentioned that, we started seeing it everywhere. Even in the small towns that we would go to, we started seeing it there. So it puts things in more perspective, like, oh, like
they really ran.
Yeah, how much they ran. Yeah, so that was really interesting, just hearing your history in that part. But yeah, Florence was very busy. Now we can get into the cons. Some of the cons is that, well, this is not a con of Italy itself. Okay. So I don't know if I told you this, but when I got into Italy, I ended up getting an infection.
Oh yeah,
on my arms.
Yeah, you told me this.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's been watching like the previous episodes, but I have like an eczema issue on my arms, and I don't know if it was like the dry air on the plane or whatever. But
were you in a t-shirt?
I think I was maybe. Yeah. So the moment we landed in Rome, like I started feeling something on my arms, right?
Like pain?
Like it was very itchy for sure. But then it started getting more, the eczema started getting more like irritated. Oh. And then the next day is literally like, I don't even know if I should say this, but it was, there was stuff coming out of it basically, which is something I have never seen when it comes to my eczema. So we spent half the time in Rome just running to like the different pharmacias trying to find some solution for this. Thankfully, at one point, we just told one of the people at the pharmacy like what was going on, and we were supposed to get a prescription for this, but she just like went to the back and got it for us.
Okay.
And gave it to me, and alhamdulillah, it worked. Like it went away right away, or it didn't go away right away, but at least that stuff stopped. It wasn't.
That's so crazy.
It wasn't coming out as much. It was actually becoming less irritated.
Yeah.
But that was a huge issue for the first part of the trip. Yeah, and like to the point where I had to wear a long sleeve shirt out in the heat because it would like leak. It was bad. It was really bad. So that was definitely like one of the biggest cons, just having to deal with that. Yeah. But it had nothing to do with the trip.
Yeah.
The actual things that have to do with the trip, like the cons in that case, are mosquitoes.
Really? There are mosquito. Maybe it was a mosquito bite.
I think it was just like the season. Cause sorry, I'm sweating here. 1 second. Okay. I was dying there.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look that bad.
Oh yeah. Now that I have my shirt off, you can kind of see it's not as bad as it was before.
Yeah.
But it was becoming an issue essentially.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and it was making a lot of things we were doing. Like you get self-conscious because you're walking around and you see like. I had Band-Aids on it at one point, so you see like 4 Band-Aids on my arms as I'm walking around.
Yeah.
So that was a big issue, but we dealt with it. But yeah, the mosquitoes were definitely like a huge issue. I think it's because also the weather was perfect for a majority of the trip.
Yeah.
The only day it rained was the day we came into Rome.
Oh, it's not
yeah,
bad.
and it rained maybe for a few hours, and then it was gone by the time we tried to go out again, I believe.
Okay.
But because of that, there was a lot of standing water, and I think maybe that brought some of the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
So I got lit up, like all over my body. Mainly when we went to the port town, I got like completely covered in mosquito bites. But that was a huge like issue that we had to kind of deal with.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, it was really annoying. And then like you're getting bit, and I feel like I also kind of got sick from a lot of those bites at near the end.
Like malaria?
No, not like that. Just like a cold. I don't know if maybe it's related.
Like malaria?
If it was, then I must be the strongest man in the world because I dealt with it pretty well.
That's great. Did you take malaria pills?
No, you didn't take any malaria pills. I don't think you get that in Italy. Can you?
I don't know.
I feel like you get that more in like Africa and stuff.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Stop being stereotyped.
I'm gonna reel back a little bit here because there was a couple things that I kind of forgot to mention. When we drove from Siena to Porto San Stefano, I mentioned that we wanted to go to some smaller towns.
Yeah.
And one of those smaller towns is actually a place called Monte Pulciano. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But that town was actually like it gave you a good idea of like what a smaller town might look like. And it had probably the best views as well. Like it's second to Siena maybe.
Yeah.
Like it was just cool vibes. You could walk the whole city in a couple hours. Yeah, really small. They had a lot of like cool boutique shops. They had a lot of cool art that was there too. They had like a whole row of just individual artists who made their own things and would sell them on the street there. So that was probably one of the highlights of the trip as well, because they actually had entrance to the tower in this case. Some of the places they have entrances to the clock towers. So we actually got to walk up the clock tower, which is kind of death-defying as well, because those stairs were like literally no wider than maybe half the chair that I'm sitting on right now. Some of the stairs,
like each step,
like the width of the step itself. Yeah, you can have to walk sideways in some of them. In some cases,
scary.
Yeah, it was really scary. And these are like hundreds of year old rocks, right, that you're standing on. So it was, it was a little
one wrong step and you hear a little rock crumble. I said no.
It's part of the experience, okay? There's definitely some crumbles you'll be here and there.
Sure. Wait, really?
Huh?
The rocks are crumbling?
Oh no, like like the dust and the small stuff. Nothing big. But that was really fun.
Hanan agreed to climb this clock tower?
I was surprised too.
I'm shocked.
You could clearly tell like halfway through the walk up, she's like, maybe we shouldn't have done this. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, you can see like maybe this walk up the tower was an afterthought, because in order to get there, when you walk into the building, it's like the normal ticket check and whatever.
Yeah.
But then you have to walk through their like records office. Okay. Yeah, it literally looks like an office you're walking through, and you can see all their like records throughout the years. You know how they put those binders with like the year on it?
Yeah.
You just see those all over the walls, and then there's like small signs that say, "Oh, turn this way." You're like going around these random aisles, and then finally you see the stairs to get to it, and it's like this dark hole that you have to walk into, and then it's like these thin ass stairs, and if someone's walking down, you have to wait for them so you can get to the area where there's more room. It was an interesting experience, but that was a really fun area. And then of course Porto Santo Stefano, which is a huge highlight of the trip, because that was like the typical picturesque towns that you see when you think of Italy, or at least a port town in Italy. You see all the colorful buildings. You have the port in the center with the boats and the clear blue water.
Was it giving what's that really famous one that everyone goes to? Amalfi Coast.
Yeah, Amalfi Coast. What did you call it? Amalfi Coast?
That's what I said.
Amalfi. Yeah.
Isn't it Amalfi?
No.
What did I say?
It's A-M,
Amalfi.
You said
What
you said
did I
something
say?
different. She
No,
said
I
something
didn't.
different.
No, I didn't.
She
No,
said
I
something
didn't.
different. It's Amalfi
And
Coast.
Don't you dare rewind. I know you're going to do that. Don't do it, Amir. What's that really famous one that everyone goes to? Amalfi Coast.
Amalfi Coast.
Welcome back from the rewind. But that place was like, if you don't want to go to the Amalfi Coast, if you want to go somewhere more chill, I feel like this is a good second
good
choice. Yeah, Porto Santo Stefano was like a really cool area. They have another area called Porto Ercole, which was near it. We didn't think that one was much of the vibe. We heard that one's more of like a local spot.
Okay.
So, but that's another option in case you want to go there. But Porto Santo Stefano was really nice. We actually stayed on an island, and though our resort said Porto Santo Stefano in the name, it was actually like kind of 15 minutes on the other side of the island.
Oh.
Yeah, but of course we would just drive there whenever we wanted to go there and see it. But that was also a really cool town. It's just basically like what you picture in your mind when you think of a coast in Italy, and that's why you don't, when you see those videos, you think they're edited, or you feel like it's fake, whatever. But when you see it in person, it's like a surreal experience, because you're seeing like it actually is as beautiful as they make it look.
Cool. Did it
right?
look like hyper saturated?
Yeah,
colorful. That's
it was
cool.
crazy.
That's
yeah,
so
and
cool.
Thankfully they actually had it used to be an old fort town where they would be watching out on the water for any like pirate ships or whatever coming in. So they had a little fort at the top of the hill that looked over the whole town, so you could actually pay to get in, go to the top of that fort, and you could see the whole town from there.
That's cool.
Yeah, but it was super windy.
Oh.
Like crazy windy. Like there's one point where Hanan was like fighting to keep her hijab on. That wind was crazy, but the view was worth it.
Yeah?
It was definitely worth it. Yeah.
That's nice.
And of course, because it's a port town, there's a lot more seafood involved in their diet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more choices
How was
on what
it?
we could eat. Oh, it was really good. It was
like
really
fresh
good.
seafood?
Yeah. Like we stayed we went to a restaurant that was kind of in between the resort and the city. And it was like in the middle of the woods. We went there kind of at nighttime, so it was really cool vibes. There's cats running around and stuff. Yeah, and they had some really good food, some really good seafood in there.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that was really cool highlight. We got to see a sunset. The place where the resort was, it was facing right where the sun sets, so you actually got a perfect view of that. It like fell behind an island, and they had their own private beach that we could swim in, so we got to swim in the Mediterranean. Water was cold as hell though.
Oh, was it?
It was crazy cold.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that.
I think it's because it had just started getting warmer, so the water hasn't had time to heat up yet.
Yeah.
So there were some warm spots, but overall, it took me a good 5 to 10 minutes to just get into the water. But once we were in there, we were swimming around, and you're trying to avoid touching all the rocks, because if you don't know, like Italy is basically built on a bunch of volcanoes. Yeah, the whole place. I mean, you've heard of Pompeii and stuff, right? Like there's a lot of volcanic rock everywhere, which is very sharp. And my hands had like cuts all over it. Yeah. But other than that, it was really cool to just swim in that water.
Yeah.
We didn't see any wildlife in the water, mainly because we didn't have goggles, so we're not looking inside there. I did try and look in a couple times.
Yeah.
But it's salt water, right? So
that's a bad idea.
Actually, it wasn't that bad.
Really?
Yeah, even with my eyes open in the water. Like
it wasn't as bad as like Australia's.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as that. Yeah. So but it was just really cool.
Crazy.
Doing that. But yeah, overall, the trip was amazing.
So overall, what would you rate the trip?
Oh, the trip was like, I would say a 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Wow.
It went as good as it could have gone outside of the whole eczema thing. Maybe I'll give it a 9 out of 10 because of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like if I were to put them in like top 3, it would be like Rome, Actually, I might even put Porto Santo Stefano before Siena and then Siena.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see if there's any other things I need to mention here that I might have forgotten about. Oh yeah, tips. I mentioned the bug spray tip, but other tips if you're planning to go to Italy, I would say you don't really need cash. Literally everyone there uses card or tap or whatever.
Okay.
So you don't really need to bring cash with you at all. Like maybe bring like 50 euros max and bring it in change if you can. So you can pay for like, they don't really accept tip out there, or it's not that they don't accept it, but it's not expected. Tip is not expected out there. But if you wanted to give tip, you can give a couple euros here and there, that kind of thing. And just do your research ahead of time. Like we did a little bit of research. I did more research on Rome. She did more research on Siena. But there's so much to do. It can feel overwhelming. So if you don't like pick your spots ahead of time and you don't do your research ahead of time, you can kind of like feel
decision fatigue.
Yeah, decision fatigue, and you might just end up searching for spots longer than actually going out and doing things.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing we learned on the trip. And another tip I would say is bring proper walking shoes.
Yeah.
Like make sure these shoes are tested and ready for it.
Broken into already.
Exactly. Ironically enough, my favorite shoes to walk in were sandals.
I thought you were going to say Vessies.
No, I actually didn't bring the Vessies on this trip. I just brought my Hokas, which were good shoes, but I actually felt more comfortable in sandals. Like halfway through the trip, I switched to those, and I kind of just wore them for the rest of the trip. I just liked wearing my Vessies.
Yeah.
Not my Vessies, sorry. My sandals, because I think it just allowed me to splay out my feet more, and it just felt more comfortable, especially with the heat and everything.
The toes got some air. Huh?
Exactly. I get it. But yeah, that was our Italian trip. Overall, I said, 9 out of 10. But I would give it 10 out of 10 without the health scares, basically. And
what made you guys pick Italy?
I don't know. I think it was the history. I think we're just both history nerds. And Italy is just that classic vacation spot that you always think of. Because also she had been to a lot of other places that we could have gone to, like Turkey was a location, but she had been there, and like the other European cities like the UK and Paris, but she had been there and I had been there. So we're looking for something more Mediterranean. So Italy was like a good middle area. It was either that or like Greece, but Greece is also very busy. So Italy was like a good middle spot, and also it's like not as far. It's very easy to get there. Prices weren't too bad. There's a lot of things that went into it. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was that was a big part of it. Just travel time as well.
How long was the flight?
Oh no, it wasn't like I think it was 7.
Oh, that's not
the
bad.
longest one was 7 hours, and the other one was like 2 hours. So like altogether, you get there in less than 10 hours.
That's not bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel like because we do Ethiopia and we've done Australia now, anything under that, we're like, ah.
Exactly. And actually, a cool part of the trip that I forgot to mention was that at the end, when coming back, we were able to book our flights in a way we had a 24-hour layover in Paris.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we made a small stop in Paris. We both have been there already, but we just wanted to, just vibe out there for a bit, spend a day there. We made our way to the Eiffel Tower at night to see it like light up and everything.
Yeah.
We went to like a small West African spot to get some food.
Nice.
But it was good. Yeah. Overall, the whole trip was really nice. Yeah, so that's where we were, guys. Or that's where I was.
And then we came back. Well, you came back.
Yeah.
And then it was Eid.
Yeah.
But before Eid, we did have some sad news in our families.
So
family.
Yeah, unfortunately, my uncle had passed away literally the day before Eid, right? So we came in on Monday, and by Tuesday, I went to go and visit, and at that point, he had already passed. So Eid was more somber than it normally is.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, we were able to get him buried very quickly, which is a good sign. And of course, the whole community pulled up for this.
Yeah.
And yeah, his name was Abdurrahman Muhammad. So make sure to make dua for him as well. May Allah grant him Jannah, of course. And inshallah, all the duas you can make, you'll receive them and raise his rank in paradise. But yeah, that was really a shocking thing to kind of come back to.
Yeah.
Like, this is someone who...
he raised us.
Yeah, he basically raised us.
I mean, I think it's okay to say, like...
What?
Who he is, right?
Oh, like he's a dad of?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's actually a dad, the dad of Abbas, who was on the podcast
He's been on before.
Yeah, he's been on before, like years ago when we had like a little joke podcast or intro we did when we were on a cottage trip. So it was his father, and basically, if you guys already, I think I've mentioned this before, like Abbas is basically like a brother for me. Yeah, because we were born maybe 1 month apart. We grew up together. Like we were staying at each other's houses. His dad would actually used to live here, and basically was like a second father in the family. So it was a huge hit for the family, and we were kind of just reeling back from that for the past few days as well. But alhamdulillah, like Abbas was here for his final moments. Yeah, he got to meet his grandson. So there was a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot going on, but at least there's a lot a positive we could take away from it as well, I felt, right? So yeah. And they say like when someone dies in the manner he did, like they die as is it shaheed or martyr? Yeah, same. Yeah, so we can take some solace from that as well. Exactly. So that was definitely a huge hit for the community and for us. So we were kind of getting back from that as well. But yeah, inshallah, we all meet in paradise one day. I mean. But yeah, so outside of that, before we end the podcast, I know it's kind of all just Italy related, and we kind of ended it on a lower note there, but we still want to cover some of your comments from the past few weeks and just try and reconnect with you guys, because I feel like we've been disconnected for a while. So what? Should we do a TikTok live? Our Gen Z cousins were mentioning that yesterday. They're like, remember when you used to do TikTok lives? Okay, when we have time, maybe we'll do a mukbang TikTok live. Yeah, I mean, I hate the thought of eating on camera, but we could totally do that. I fully had pomegranate seeds the other day, so the last episode. Oh yeah, exactly. But someone said, these are all comments from our vlog. I bursted out laughing when you said, I saw the light. Very relatable. Wait, what did you say that in the context at the end when you were about to finish? Yeah. Oh, okay. I said at one point of the run I saw the light. So I was like, how are we not done yet? There was one aspect of it, is that like it felt long. It did feel long, and there was a lot of stretches where I'm like, you just get into like a mode where you Did you black out? It feels like you're not moving. Yeah, okay. Yeah. At one point I actually blacked out. Like I don't remember passing the 5 kilometer mark, because I remember like we were running and I'm like, oh my god, how far, where are we? I don't even know where we're at this point. And then all of a sudden I see 6 kilometers. I'm like, when did we even pass 5? Yeah, because I like to know like where I'm at, like how I'm doing. Yeah, and I had no clue where I was at one point. Was your mind always focused on the run, or did you just like start getting distracted with like thinking of other things? No, I kind of, what it was? So I was focusing a lot on my breathing, because for some reason my AirPods kept disconnecting. Yeah. So I was running in silence for the most part. And then the first half of the run, we were focused on where you and Sabri were. So we kept turning around to like look for you guys. And then once you guys passed us, we were like, okay, like, let's like, we have to put ourselves in cruise mode until we have to pick up the pace again. So we were doing that, and then I started just focusing on breathing, and then I think by like 8 kilometers, all I could think about was like, get your butt to the finish line. That's it. Oh yeah, that's literally all I was thinking about. So you were like just like one step in front of the other. Yeah. But then I would see the signs, and like that would kind of distract me. And then I saw Nabat at like some point, and I didn't realize it was her. Yeah. And then I was like, wait a minute, I know that girl. Yeah, did you see her twice or once? Twice. You saw her? I only saw her once. At one point she came out of the station. Yeah. And then Anwar just goes, "Hey, look, it's Nabat." I'm like, "Where?" And I see her with her sign. Yeah. And then I think she like ran for a little bit to try and catch up. Oh, that's why. Okay. Because she was like, "I ran with you guys, but I didn't see." I guess she was on the side, so I didn't see her running. Okay. And then I saw her again. Where we did the turn? Yeah. I saw her again. I'm like, wait, how'd you get here? Okay, I must have already passed that part then. Yeah. I think so. I only saw her once. Honestly, for me, I would get distracted by like the things I was seeing on the run. I was like, oh, I didn't know that place was on Yonge Street. I should note this down. You looked at the stores? I was literally making note. As I was running, I was making note of where all these stores were. I was like, I didn't know that was here. Oh, they have this place here. Okay, I'm gonna have to remember this for next time. No way. I was like making mental note, and that's how I like pass the time by, because I would be thinking about like, oh, like we can come here on this day, and next thing you know, it's like I've gone from 5 to 6, from 6 to 7, and 6. Okay.
According to Noah, that's out now.
I know he said that's brain rot.
Now it's all about 6-6 or 6-6-6 or 7-7-7. That's what he taught me.
The devil's got them.
I know. I said don't say that one.
Yeah.
No. You can say 7-7-7.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but so Mariam, who was a guest on our podcast before, she said, "Mashallah, beautiful team, beautiful cause. Here's to many more, inshallah." Thank you, girl. A lot of them were just like saying, "Congratulations, y'all crushed that." Anissa 5052 said, "This was so good. Thanks for bringing us along."
Yeah, wasn't there someone who left a comment? I remember I checked it like a couple days before we left.
Yeah.
And it was like, this better not be a replacement for the podcast.
Yeah, but I don't know where that episode went.
You mean that clip? That comment?
Sorry, yeah, did they delete it? Maybe they deleted it.
Yeah.
And then Mufasa1434 says, "Congratulations, mashallah. This is such an amazing accomplishment. Do you mind sharing what your training routine was like? I've wanted to get into running for a while, but my endurance is not great." Yeah, let's give you some tips. Okay, so for me personally, I never used to run ever in my life, until I started training for the 5K. And what I noticed was that running on a treadmill versus running outside is very different. It is. A treadmill can control your pace, whereas running outside, you have to control your pace. You can also
control the elevation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think in the beginning of training, I really struggled with breath control. And so what helped me in terms of my endurance and just learning how to breathe properly while running was I took up swimming. So I would swim laps because that's literally a full body workout like running is. Yeah. And that helped me with breath control because you're going to die if you don't breathe when you're swimming, you know? So that really changed the game for me when it came to controlling my breathing and like breathing in a like what was it called, like a certain rhythm, I guess.
Yeah, the rhythm.
Yeah. So there was that's that breathing aspect of it. And then the actual running, we did a couple group runs where we would do like about 5 kilometers on the weekends. And I think running in a group also helps you stay motivated. Yeah. But then running on your own too is great as well because you have to learn how to also, it's a lot of it is mental. So you kind of have to be comfortable with pushing yourself and like having that willpower to do that.
I think that's why for me, it might have actually been easier to get ready for the run because I had already been working out consistently. So I had like the breathing down because when you're working out and you're doing like heavy lifting, breathing is a huge aspect to it, and knowing how to breathe properly and where to breathe. And then also, of course, I have a history of running when I was a kid, which is years ago, but you don't realize like how much you remember from those days. So I feel like that kind of helped in it. And then I would train at least like 2 or 3 days a week, and I would increase the kilometers every week. Yeah. So like at the first week we did it, I started at 5K. Yeah. And then I went to 6K the next week, and then I think I might even skipped. I did 7K and then I did 8K right before the run. And by the time I did the 8K, I felt like, I could do another 2 kilometers. So that's when the 10K came in.
If you've never run before, I wouldn't recommend just trying to run a full 5K.
Oh yeah. That's very different.
Definitely do like intervals. So like run for as long as you can, or even like start with just like run for 1 minute, walk for 1 minute, like on off.
There's a method for that Hanan actually tried to tell me about, where it's essentially that where I think you sprint for 1 minute and then you walk for 3 minutes and you sprint for 1 minute, walk for 3 minutes, and this helps with something increasing your VO2 max.
It also helps with your recovery because like when your heart rate gets elevated, you have to bring yourself back down, otherwise you're just going to be like huffing and puffing, and it's hard to get oxygen, and then you feel lightheaded, and then you can more susceptible to faint. So if you're first like starting out from scratch, try like the run, like walk for 3 minutes, run for 1 minute, walk for 3 minutes, and then essentially each time that you train, you reduce your walk time and you increase your run time, so that eventually you'll find that you're comfortable running for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15, so on and so forth. And then once you get that part down, then you can work on like increasing your pace.
Probably increasing your pace.
Yeah, like getting faster, essentially. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so yeah, hopefully those tips help with that.
And shoes really matter.
Oh, they do.
Because they can really make or break your running experience. You want to look for ones that have like really thick soles, especially for like the balls of your feet, and you want to protect your ankles and your knees, and of course we mentioned before, stretch. Stretching is huge. Before and after.
That made a huge difference, as you heard.
And hydrate. Drink a lot of water.
I didn't do enough of that, unfortunately.
You know what's crazy? I just remembered this. You know when we were running and they would have the water stations, but they would always have water first and then electrolytes after?
I didn't even know that.
Oh.
Yeah. I literally, because I skipped them all. I didn't drink for the whole run. Yeah.
Why?
Because I never drank when I trained. So I was like, I feel like if I drink now, it'll mess up something. So I was like, let me just continue the way I used to do it. Or that, yeah.
I didn't realize the first one, so I took water and it was so cold, but it's such a weird feeling. I drank the water, but I felt so thirsty after. Like I felt like I didn't drink anything. Yeah. So I'm like, I should have had electrolytes.
Electrolytes do make the difference, though.
Yeah. So that was my one regret.
Yeah, bring electrolytes. Even if you didn't want to pick them up from there, you can get these like electrolyte packets.
The gels?
Yeah. Oh. Like either gel or maybe even I've seen ones that look like I guess it would be too heavy. They look like Capri Suns. I've seen stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But any electrolytes really will help. Yeah, if you want it, you can just get the powder, and when you see the water, just like put it all together. I don't know. Just figure out something. Yeah.
But you got this. Get into your running journey. Because.
It's the season now.
That's what all the millennials are doing.
Yeah.
We've all become runners now. But yeah. Ooh, this is from a couple weeks ago where we were talking about the Muslim marriage reality show. MA-GS9TE.
Okay.
They said, as a fellow cookie lover, the best cookies are at Abby's Bakehouse at Square One, specifically their Biscoff cookie. You should go.
Abby's Bakehouse?
Yeah.
But Square One, no. Square One. Okay. If I ever find myself in the neighborhood, I'll check it out.
This person said, this is when we were talking about Aisha's doppelganger, celebrity.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This person said, I think Aisha's celebrity lookalike is Sierra. They have similar bone structure.
What? Nah.
It's kind of like that time that someone said you look like Gibeon.
Which I still don't see. Even Hanan Kadraj, no, it is not.
It's really funny though, because you look nothing alike, but it's really funny. I'm just laughing at that side by side.
Not the same hairstyle, not the same nose, eyes, skin tone. All those things are different, man. Voice.
This comment is from Lamaya Hassan. Hey Sara and Amir, happy anniversary. I'm a day one, just not a commenter. Oh.
Hey, shout out to all the silent listeners.
Thanks.
Okay, guys. Thank you again for listening to this podcast. I know I kind of just rambled about my Italian trip.
No, it wasn't a ramble. You were sharing your experience.
I know, but I can organize it a little better. Maybe.
That's okay.
It's whatever. Okay?
It's authentic.
That's authentic to what this podcast is, okay?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be an unorganized mess, but y'all still stick around. And if you want to stick around even longer, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And of course, follow us at Cousin Connection Pod, Instagram, TikTok. We post clips on there as well. And sorry again for the wait there, but that won't become the norm. Well, I say that all the time, but I really mean it this time. Okay, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.
Oh. Bye.